Thanks for putting up all the tech difficulties and the map song. I don't think anyone wants to see this map. Thank you for putting up all the tech difficulties. I've had a really rough day trying to book this room, and it just ends up being the original one that I was tentatively just going to hijack. So thank you a lot for putting up all this. Okay, so give me a minute. Thanks for putting up all the tech difficulties and URL because everything on top is like super sketchy looking. If I can find a marker. Man, I really can't find a marker, huh? Wow, okay. A plus. Are they dry erase? Did you feel them? They're dry erase now. Okay, talk them over. Just talk this. Okay, A plus. Now we know that I will never make a career playing baseball. Anyway. So, go to. We are two lines. Yeah, let's. David, why did you turn off the lights? God damn it.
What? That's her. Not good.
Wow, I can't even read this.
The other side.
I'm turning the lights back on. This is dumb. Honestly, the amount of tech difficulty is whatever.
You want me to put the link in the
There we
live
go.
stream?
You know what? We'll keep it like this, where everyone can see things. Yes? Yes? Everyone's okay? Oh, slash slides. God damn it. Ugh. When you can't see and you try to write on the board, bad times happen. If anyone is on the Facebook event page, would you mind also putting that link on the event page as well, please? Thank you. Also, I want to thank a huge shout out to Clive for helping make the sexy talk from last night happen, as well as helping out all technical police today. So, wow, this is good. Is this reasonable? Is this okay? All right. So, welcome to my tech talk. I'll be talking about design and web design, if you guys don't know. I've never done a tech talk before the last 2 days, and then yesterday a surprising amount of people showed up, like nearly 30 to 40, which is pretty cool, I guess. So, hats off to those people. And I hope you guys learned something, take something out of this. So, yeah. So, wow. All right. So, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Tiffany. I'm studying 2A computer science right now. I've been building websites for about 2 to 3 years, although I've been only really seriously into and front-end development for the last year or so. I've been self-taught. I still use Google and Stack Overflow to answer basic CSS questions sometimes because I can't figure out what's going on. I'm also usually coding at 3 a.m., so like that will also explain things. That and I love Overwatch too much, and I will put my battle.net up at the end of this, so you guys can just add me. Haha, humor. So, show of hands. How many of you have zero knowledge of HTML, CSS whatsoever? No, I'm asking serious. Just raise your hands up and keep them high. Okay, cool. How many of you guys know some HTML, CSS? You know your way around a div and a class and an ID and basic properties.
Can I change my vote to not knowing?
Okay. Who here is like, I'm a god. I could probably take this talk over. Like, thanks. now, okay? You all raise your hand for knowing nothing, I know. Alright? New question. Who here knows art? Graphic design, visual design. Alright, cool. Some of this stuff may appeal to you. I am, alas, not an artist, and I'm a really crappy artist. So if you get offended, I'm sorry. My lack of art knowledge will be showing throughout this presentation. So this talk for the next 2 hours, I'm not going to be making a workshop. This is not a workshop where I will be like, look at this HTML code, I'm going to share this, and now I'm going to go, you guys are all going to build an example portfolio for your Gank co-op jobs next semester for those of you who are first year or people who are just looking for jobs in general right now still. This is not it. I'm not going to teach you basic HTML, CSS for those of you who don't know. I'm sorry, but you can find that on the internet. W3 Schools is an excellent resource. You can find a lot of tutorials for doing that. So, who here takes martial arts? What martial art do you take?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh, Muay Thai.
Okay. Anyone else? Alright. So I'm sure a lot of martial arts are like, oh, so you study these basic moves and then afterwards you go into advanced stuff and then but like it's all rooted in spirituality and mentality and you should not fight people. Yeah. So like all those martial arts we're Krav Maga. We were born out of the sheer necessity of having to learn how to build shit fast. And Krav Maga was made so that you can stab someone in the eye and book it, so you can save your life. Okay? So this kind of version guide for design. This is quick and dirty. This is how-to for real people because designers are uppity assholes sometimes. You know what? So layman's terms. Alright, so first, before you can do anything, you gotta figure out what you're trying to do. You know how restaurants can bring up food so fast in the span of an hour so you can eat within an hour and then leave? That's because are you prepared? So we're gonna talk about that first. So, here's our problem. You have a little website. Okay. What's the first thing you think of? First thing, anything at all? What does it look like? What else?
The differences. You have a different view.
Okay, different views.
How much does it cost to pay someone to do it?
That too. What else? No, please God. Sure. Any other suggestions?
How many shots of vodka will it take to make your
For you, I'm pretty sure that's 19.
You know, it sounds about right.
Alright, so all these are pretty good, but real specific. We're trying to talk about the big thing. Let's think more abstractly. Let's think about this. What's the purpose of the website? You know what it's for at all? You know who you're designing for? Who your audience is? What's your goal? If you don't know, then you won't be able to figure out what you have to build from there on. Alright? It's all about the intention. And DPT is like my version of a life pro tip that's shittier and only for one field. It's called design pro tips. Alright? You'll see these throughout the presentation. So subject, goal, audience. Those are your big 3 things. So let's run through some examples. You're an artist. You draw a lot. You want to put artwork somewhere. You want to make a professional portfolio. You want to get hired, right? You need to showcase your artwork on a portfolio website. I'm sorry, we can't read this. Like, we tried. You're a company, startup, trying to make expand your market into the digital realm. All right. You do consulting services for finances, let's say, or maybe you're trying to offer products and goods. Imagine how Shopify built their site from the ground up. Imagine how Amazon built their site from the ground up. All right. You're a freelance blogger. You write a lot. All right. So you want to post all your posts on the internet. You want to figure out how to expand your market. You want to be hired for journalism at some point. You go to the school when you need a job. You're job mine. So you need to make a website to impress recruiters so that you can showcase your dank side projects. Yes, this is actually making me wet. Okay? All of these. Can you tell me at least for one of them what the subject, goal, and audience is? Well, nothing? I got most of that actually. So, alright, for those who didn't hear, basically your subject is your accomplishments, your goal is to impress your recruiters, and your audience is of course the recruiters themselves. Awesome. So, prioritize what you need most, okay? So artists, you need to showcase a lot of images, right? Digital, print, illustration. Maybe you're trying to get into animation. Maybe you want to work with Disney at some point. Company, you need multiple pages to show off all your services and stuff. You need to sell yourself to the consumer, potential market, right? You need to detail what you can offer, how they would benefit. So you can add images of your products. You can add images of people happy. You can have quotes from customers before who were like supremely satisfied with your service. Text descriptions, so on and so forth. Think about the purpose. If you're a blogger, you need to put down a lot of text. You need something that's easy to read. It has to be simple. You have to be able to read it on many devices because a lot of people will read it on phones, tablets, so on. You want people to sign up. You're a student. You need links to your projects, to your GitHub, your resume, images of your products if you can, text descriptions of services. Make it easy to read through so that's because recruiters will look at your set for no longer than 10 seconds. You have 10 seconds to impress someone. Make it count. Okay? So, purpose. We covered that. That's the biggest thing you need to think about before you design. So, now that you found your purpose, what's afterwards? How are you going to structure your site? No, vodka doesn't count. All right, say that again. Better. I mean, the one who said bootstrap before. That's pretty funny. Yeah, you can use bootstrap. Actually, bootstrap's useful, even though I don't use it a lot, but I will use it. But layouts, right? You want to figure out how to structure your website. Okay? You want to group related content together. Well, how would you feel if you went to a website and there is an about next to an image of a dog and you're not doing anything related to dogs?
What's wrong with that?
Or if you're an artist and you're putting up like not artwork at all, this is a professional side project of code. Like that makes no sense, right? You want group related content. You want to make sure your content is relevant. Single page versus multi-page. I see a lot of people doing one or the other. Do you want to do everything displayed so that you can scan, everyone can just scroll through and then get out of your website? Or do you want to lead them through clicks and have to go deeper and be more interesting? Right? My website uses multi-page, okay? That's fine. Either works. It's up to you for your preference. This talk will not dictate to you what the ultimate perfect layout is or whatever perfect design is. That's not the point. Design has only a few rules and then you get to run wild, okay? Because in the end, I don't dictate what's perfect. No one dictates what's perfect. It's just up to you. You're making a website here.
Does the person you were meeting before dictator?
Yes, okay, I mean, in that case, yes. That's a different story. Let's assume for the sake of this talk, because a lot of people express me, how would I make my own website? Yes, you're making your own website, this is for you. How would you navigate through those groups of content? That's important too. You can have a bunch of pages, but if you have no idea how to get through all of them, you're screwed. I worked for the Context School Board for my first co-op. Our navigation was 7 levels deep. You had to go through menus of menus of menus, and there was no way out. Alright? That was a problem we faced, so we were tasked with restructuring that and fixing that. But for designing layout, for going to actually just figuring out how you want to look, right? Google is good. You can look up design. Sketching works. If you want to use Photoshop, do it. If you want to use or whatever art software you use, GIMP, Firefox, I don't know. You could even do basic HTML, CSS. Just start right off the bat, and that has its own benefits and as well for being able to change it on the go, and like you can get started from there. Like there's different ways to do it. I sketch a lot, as you can see. These are all sketches I've done. I have the notebook in my bag. Well, it's supporting the projector right now. Very useful notebook. This was all the sketches I did for my first website. Well, my first personal website. I wrote down everything. How I wanted to look, what the colors were, etc., how it should look, how it should be laid out, sections of content that I wanted on it. This was a commission I got for a hackathon project at Queen Hacks. Designed all of it in 2 days flat. I mean, if you want to count the hours, 8 to 9 from scratch. So, you have your layout. Maybe you don't. Maybe you don't know what you want to do still. That's fine. You don't need to know what you have right off the bat. You can look at examples. You can steal. Because good designers can create, but great designers steal and then make it better. It's not about Snapchat and Instagram now, right? No idea is ever really sacred anyways. It's just about who does a better idea. So, you figure out your purpose. You figure out for the most part how you're going to get the idea for laying out your website. So, okay. Let's talk about how it's supposed to look now. This is the art class part. Hashtag aesthetic. Okay? So, the first thing I'm going to talk about before, consider it, if this is just core principles of this talk, this is one of it. Consistency. I've seen websites where every page you go through on the same website looks almost completely unrecognizable from the page before. And you have no idea what happened, and it kind of confuses and irritates the hell out of you. Right? You want to keep your layout consistent. You don't make every minute detail be exactly the same across websites. But think about how sections would look compared to each other, like how they're spaced out. How would you, if you have a header on one page, would you have the header across all pages? Would you have a footer across all pages? Navigation on top, you should keep the navigation on top and style the same, right? Another thing is white space. The slide's funny. I like to see how you do it. If you do, raise your hands quietly. All right. White space is like. Is this gonna work? Okay, thank God. Honestly, obviously, it's like all the space you have around your stuff. And have any of you guys gone to a website where everything's all crammed together and much, and you can't reach it, and then everything's confusing? Just raise your hand up because you've just been frustrated. just frustrated. Just going to a website and being like, why can't I find anything I want? Turn them off the ground. Here we go. I don't kick you out. How many of you guys been to websites where everything is also not there because there's almost nothing on there? There's too much. Wrong example. We switched them. And for the record, he was showing my website for too much info and job mine for too little. Mix them up. When you have too much and you have no idea where content is, like, what's the point of looking at this super cool, modern looking website when there's nothing, you have no purpose. There's exactly no reason why you should be there. That's just as bad. Alright? That being said, if you want to err on the side of caution, just add more space. I promise you people will like to read your stuff if they could read it. Okay? So that's really all I have for layout. These layouts are really finicky creatures. You have a ton of different inspirations. A lot of people will see nowadays websites kind of look the same a little bit. It's like a really cool hero image and like call to action buttons and like this is what we do. We're amazing. We're disruptive. We shit. Okay? Like, God, I know some of you have seen that website. I've seen that website. Jesus Christ. Yeah, like you have company websites that look radically different. You have enterprise who aren't really interested in marketing to young, cool people who or whatever. I don't know. All right. So the layouts are your own thing. That's something for you to figure out on your own because design is something you can own. So let's talk about type. So Google Fonts is a thing, first of all. I have talked to someone, at least once, where I was like, hey, do you know that Google Fonts exists? And he was like, no. I just picked my fonts out of Microsoft Word, and then I looked at the font, and then I put it on the website. And I mean, I had to take a pause because I was like physically in pain for a second there. I'm an uppity designer, right? I'm an uppity asshole. But yeah, so typography is how your words look. We call them fonts, all right? Google Fonts is a free font repository. Let's take a look actually. I see my own mouse. This would be nice, like that. Alright, Google Fonts. Amazing. A+. I'm pretty sure some of you have seen it. For those of you who can't see the sidebar, basically that's a bunch of options saying like what kind of fonts you want to look at and which one's most popular, sorting, so on and so forth. But basically, ton of fonts, all free. So, and it's really easy to include. For those of you who know basic HTML, CSS, if you know what a head is, you just include in the head, and then you type in what you want your font to look like, and then boom, it looks fantastic. Amazing, very cool. So, that's one. Another one is this. Font Squirrel. It will have some fonts that you cannot find on Google Fonts. It's again free. If you want yet another one, but if you want to be better than all your broke college friends, all right? And you want to shell out the money to Adobe of all companies, Typekit subscription. You get all the fanciest fonts and only cost hundreds of dollars. Because guess what? Fonts can actually cost up to hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Just for one, by the way. Not counting the different styles of it. It's pretty insane. Okay? That's why companies get licenses, for the record. Can I see things? I can't see things. Okay. Wow, I can't place things. Alright, cool. We're back to the. Wow, this is really hard when everything's kind of blurry. So let's talk about font styles and stuff. So here's a rundown because this is how to pair fonts to look nicely so that your website doesn't look complete shit. Serif versus sans serif. You've noticed that this presentation has used both. Right. Alright? Or you can stick with one style and do different weights. Right? Like you have bold, and then you have like thinner fonts that are actually, you can say, like light. I don't know. There's weird names for those. There's thin fonts that look super cool, and then people can't read your stuff. So I will come down to a slightly later slide. Don't overdo your fonts. For every font you list and steal out of Google Fonts, your browser takes longer to load your website, and people will not wait for you. When you're loading your website, it has to take at least 5 seconds for things to start rendering on screen or they're gone. So you have 5 seconds to the maximum 5 to render, 10 seconds total to impress. And here's the thing I found. Some people are really good at this. Some people are at least decent at design. They choose a nice font. It's clean. It's well written, except for one thing. It's a kind of fancy font. There's like extra stuff on it. Railway, for example. You see the W here? That's hard to read when you're making that your main text. But you haven't seen a bunch of that. W is a common letter in the alphabet used in our language. Also, numbers here, they don't line up properly. That's going to piss some people off. Alright? Never. There's at least one font here I know you all recognize. What's the other two?
One is Arial, I think.
Close. Well, you should not be using Arial, but you can, honestly.
Is Arial narrow?
No, it's narrower.
Damn it.
I've heard some of you say it already, actually. Who can guess the last font? It's pretty funny for me, personally. Hint, it's named after a sea creature you can eat and pay $100 to eat for.
Sea urchin?
Pufferfish.
Crustaceans.
Is it?
Yeah, there's a font named Lobster. Why the hell would you even use a font named Lobster? Okay? I'm kidding. This is not actually a joke, but please don't actually. Also, don't use papyrus and like a bunch of others. Like, we make fun of you if you do that. We won't tell you, but we'll make fun of you. We'll close your website. We're mean people, us designers. So, alright, art class time. Color is powerful. I'm not joking. Color can make you feel a lot of different things. Color can be used to draw attention to key information. Color can also blind you, and also color, you have to take into account people who are color blind. Alright? Color can be used in a variety of ways. So psychology is done on what color makes you feel what. You know why Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, LinkedIn, why they all use blue for the logos and some part of their website.
Professional or calming.
Yeah. Why do environmentally friendly and like environmental companies and health-based companies use the color green?
Natural health.
That's also why they have it on enterprise, finance, Wall Street. Okay. Alright. Color is powerful. There's a reason why people use it. But before you do that, before I tell you to do anything involving color, for the love of God, please. Do this. White, gray, black only. Because when you start immediately off with color, when you're like, oh, I'm gonna pick a dozen of these colors and they're all gonna be pretty and everything looks great, you end up losing sight of what you're trying to do in the first place, and then also everything just never works out the way you want it. What if you're designing a brand for a company at some point because you actually want to go to design and they're not any of the brand colors whatsoever? Like that, there's no point. That doesn't make sense. Okay? So without further ado, art class related. And like I took art class for a year when I was 6 years old, and then I quit and never came back. Yeah, so if you can't read, complementary, so like opposite, analogous, triadic, so you're picking 3 in triangle, and then like the more complex ones are here. Okay? The color wheel is actually so useful. I actually cannot explain how it's so useful. Basically, picking clashing colors can easily make your website look off-putting to everyone who goes onto it. Picking colors that look nice together, people will be like, ooh, this is pretty. Wow, I'm attracted to this website. I'm gonna look through all of it because it's just pretty, right? People are fickle creatures, okay? You want to appeal to their inner art critic and then be like, yo, stay on my site. Pay me at some point. Cool. Alright? Not mentioned here is monochrome, where you just pick one shade, one color, and then you just use shades of it involving white and black. Like, wow, amazing. Okay? So colors are hard. Picking colors is dumb, and I hate it, and I don't want to do this. I just want something easy. I understand you, so let's look at some of these resources. So, coolers. This one I've used quite a bit. So let's take a look. What you do is all these resources will be posted on the Facebook event page. These slides will be posted on the Facebook event page afterwards. You will be able to find this. So you have these colors, and basically you can hit spacebar, and it will generate a different one each time. All right, maybe I want this blue, and this blue, and this blue. Let's regenerate using only those colors. Maybe I want the colors of France for whatever reason. Baguette. Regenerate colors, so on and so forth. You can adjust these colors. So that says hue, saturation, brightness. You can mess around with how it looks. So look how bright. Different color entirely. Best of all, you can export, that's an export button, I'm sorry, into different kinds, into different formats. URL, PDF. You can even have code generated directly. Alright? This one's a little bit personal favorite. I still don't use it very often because I'm not the type of person who's like able to pick up colors because it's just so fast. It did help. Here's another one. Where if I can link this thing properly. Alright? Let's pick a image. Let's pick this coffee image. Alright? And what this will do is it will generate a color palette for me out of the image given. Cool. Alright? Here's a second favorite of mine personally. Adobe Color CC. Amazingly, this is the one part of Adobe that's actually free. Good job, Adobe. Anyways, you scan color palette, but this one is fun in that there's a little button here and has a camera. Let's pick this thing, this image. And it will pick the different colors based on what kind of scheme I want from this picture. Alright? So maybe you're not the type to do all this fancy shit. Maybe you just want to do something that's kind of like Android looking, because I know material design is a thing. Look at that. Flat UI. Simple basic colors. Oh, and like here's another background image, a light generator, you know. There's like a bunch. So like alright. So remember what I said before about contract? Oh, found it. Yeah, make your text readable. I've seen websites. There will be an example. We're going to like the next slide where basically if you do not design your website carefully, you do not think about first and foremost having everything be readable, people will fucking leave. They will not give a shit. Alright? Make your text readable. Case in point. black. Okay?
It stands up.
Does it stand up? I can barely read it.
I'm not saying it's readable, I'm saying it stands up.
Yeah. But if it stands up, but it's not readable, then what's the point?
Impact, sharp and all.
Those are text. It's all text. No. Okay? If you want an example done right, because I will be that asshole. This is my website, first iteration. It looks like shit in here. Like, I know it looks like shit here. Okay? So let's look at this kind of cool animation, I guess, whatever. Cool, whatever. This was better when I had a projector that was not shit. This text is technically readable on any screen size. Right? Here's a cool little tip. So, for those of you who know basic HTML CSS, you'll find this kind of useful. So Google has material design guidelines. And recently I was going through them, and I found this neat little thing. So, they advise you not to use text such that the colors are like, when you want to make your text a little bit darker on colored backgrounds, right? You think of using gray, or like a darker shade, right? No. But Google was like, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to do this. RGBA. So, your typical color, and then alpha. So, making it more or less transparent. So, it will always stay readable because gray on a color will at some point will not get readable. And there are colors where you just cannot read it no matter how gray you make it. So, use this. It's more contrast. Actually, you can also do this for black, where black is 0. Alright? Pro tips. So, either way, I made my personal, you can actually find that first iteration. It's on my portfolio now, on my website, if you want to go look at it. Please don't use this presentation at the very least, for the sake of my sanity. Most of all, contrast draws attention, as we already know. And I keep hammering your head repeatedly. That's the thing. But the thing is, here, let's talk about this in a real world application, like UI. So, you ever go on a website and like, they ask you to sign up? Or you go on a website and you want to buy stuff, maybe on Amazon, and you want to go to checkout. Maybe you want to delete your account. Do you ever just get this pop-up where they have a thing and they have the title and like, whatever, and then they have the buttons. And one button's really shiny and bright. And it's really readable. And it says, no, don't delete your account. Come back, don't worry about it. And then there's a little tiny bit of text right before it afterwards. Or like, maybe there's a button that looks like disabled, grayed out, you can't click on it, right? And it says, yes, delete the account. They're trying to trick you. That's how you do it. That's the power of contrast and color. You draw their attention away from doing it. You make your life slightly more difficult with UI and design. So that way, you don't want to leave your website. So that way, it's a little misleading. We call it misleading UI. It's not evil. It's just a little bit of trickery involved. A little bit more work for you. Okay? So, those are the big three, essentially, of making shit look good. Colors, layout, typography. I guess some other points of color, I guess, is please never use red and green unless you're designing for Christmas. Same for orange and black. Unless it's October. And then kids go all up orange and black. I don't really care. Or your size about Halloween. I don't know. Either one. Blue and orange are surprisingly used a lot if they use two color things. Bright colors are usually paired with duller colors, so that way you have that one bright color that indicates this is very important. And then other things are like, this is like kind of important, but like, they're just nice, and that's like good thing to look at. Okay? So, this part is where I start talking about colors. Just a little bit. first of all? Sorry? Alright, what was an element? Element doesn't do that. That's just text.
Just with the body like this. You know.
Okay, but your digs don't matter in this course.
You do left 50%, margin left negative half of the width of your element.
I've actually heard that before. I've seen that used. Alright, that's valid. It's not the best or most optimal.
Look up the 4 or 5 ways you can do it, try all of them and see which one works.
Google is always your number one tip of like Google's your best friend. Except when looking at health stuff, and don't do that. You'll scare yourself. Sure, yeah. Margin zero auto, that's the most common one used actually.
Never works.
Well, zero, the margin has a shorthand version where you just list two numbers. The first number lists the top and bottom both. Auto is for left, right. And auto will basically be like, I'll automatically do the margins for both. So therefore, both margins will be automatically centered, equal. Alright? Okay, so margin auto makes it nice for you to hold on to different elements. That's the thing. There's a way to do it. There's even a way to do it for absolute position elements. It's slightly more tricky, but you still use the margin auto in the end. But vertical though, there's no way you know how tall an element may be.
Didn't you just say that the shorthand is 0 for the top and the bottom? And
For
then
margins.
Yeah, so why not just put auto?
Auto for margin top bottom will actually default to 0. Yeah, it is. Yeah. You're saying how is this thing?
JavaScript.
That's technically valid, but literally every single person who was your set will probably hate you just a little bit. And I will explain why in part 4. Yeah, the 4 parts. Anything else? No? Nothing? Nothing? Here's a hint. Position relative. That's a property. It is relative to whatever the parent element is, and so on and so forth, up until you hit body. And body is just on there. So here's how I would do it. Here's a couple. Alright? I put basic, intermediate, depending on how much knowledge you know. And let me talk about this one in particular. Tables. Nested tables. People in yesterday's talk brought up tables, and early on in the presentation, and the first thing I said was, don't you ever do that. You leave the presentation with one thing, is never use tables to lay out. Tables is meant for data, tabular data. When you're listing information on a given subject, tables was never meant for layout. That was just a hack of the 1990s and the early 2000s when people really know things and CSS was crap. CSS is still crap. It's just slightly less crap than before. Okay? God, it's like defining our world. Now our words just like. Anyway, yeah, margins. So you can add a lot of space around your elements moving across the screen, but like the thing is, you have to account for a lot of screen sizes on desktops. Just desktops alone. You'd be on a laptop, a small one. Mine, this one's 19 by 1080, this one's 1280 by 720 pixels. How do you account for that? Position. Two types, relative. Relatively positioned, I already talked about this. Absolute is absolutely positioned based on the parent element. Some of you may confuse it with the screen. That will not happen unless that div is not unless that div is standalone. If that's othermost div, it will be absolutely positioned between the screen. Alright? And even at absolute screen, and then it will still be scrollable to a document. Fixed is when you want to stick it there no matter what.
I'd like to offer a question answer on the level of tables. What about padding?
Okay, let me draw a box model for you. So, this is your width times height. This is your content. Alright? When I add padding, extra space. Cool shit. Alright? Thing is, after padding, you're gonna add a border. Border is the outer row after padding. And then you hit margins. Okay? So there's a difference. Also, vertical margins, alright? This is like intermediate-ish behavior. Vertical margins will collapse on themselves. So the largest margin will be taken, and then that'll just be the single one. Horizontal margins will never do that. Just vertical. I see that look of understanding on some people's faces.
Wait,
That's why it's something well.
could you repeat that?
But what I do for positioning, because we're getting off topic here. So I use either position relative, top 50%, margin top, negative half of the height, if I know exactly what the height is. The thing is, nowadays I don't really do that because it's responsive, right? So what I do is, I recently got this hack from a friend actually. So position relative, okay, top 50%. And there's a neat little thing called transform. Translate y, negative 50%. And that will center it automatically no matter what your height of the div is. Chop. 5 ways. This clickbait article, alright? BuzzFeed. A plus. You're gonna do the same thing with absolute because absolute's a little bit of a pain in the ass. Alright? Same thing. Oh, also for record, if you want to do horizontal margins with absolute, it's left 0, right 0, margin X. I want to know where X is, whatever margin you want to put on top of it. I don't really care. But you have to reset left and right because you only take left and right first before you take the margins. Alright? That's what most you know HMS does. Otherwise, no. Float. A lot of you have seen float around. Float was the secondary hack of the early 2000s, singularly, because when it came out, everyone was like, holy shit, finally, we can do stuff. Except you need a bunch of hacks to fix it. How floats will do some elements is that it will ignore positioning of itself, float itself to whatever direction you want it, and all the rest of the people will just line on the other side. So imagine on an escalator. Float left tells you that this person will just stand singularly on the left. Everyone will have to go float around it to the right. Or anywhere around it. Alright? Float right in all opposite directions. Clear is the only way you reset it so that people will automatically line themselves up again so that it will take up all space and not just have this one asshole take up half of the escalator and the other half will just line up one side. Alright? Flexbox is new. This is really intermediate. This is like kind of advanced level at this point. Flexbox is new. Flexbox is basically viewed as the almost natural CSS grid layout. Coming soon. TM. I do not recommend you doing this. I will just gloss over it. Essentially, it's used so you can now scale everything in boxes and make a grid for yourself. You can look it up if you want. I do not find it useful personally in many of my projects, just because a lot of things do not require you to make columns or require such complex script. And then tables, like I said before, no. So, HTML5 exists, by the way, and this slide really says something. All right. Semantic markup. Tell us what this thing is. And HTML5 just made our life easier. So just use the header element. Use the footer for a footer. Use the nav for a navigation bar. And then the 3 maybe most confusing things about HTML5 everyone's laughing. A section is different from an article, and that an article can have a singular topic of anything, like any content at all. Just that one tiny grouping. Alright? Article is used for like blog posts and stuff, right? Section is when you need to group a bunch of more somewhat related, but like, I guess more of a type, right? Like you typecast a thing into a singular thing. Okay? I have no idea what typecasting is.
With HTML5, did they add just like a set number of those, or can you name elements whatever you want? Because there's like
That was part of HTML1. You can name elements whatever you want. If you want to name an element, my element, that is legit syntax. No one does that because we will all hate you for it, because when other people touch your code, they get pissed off real fast.
So is there like, are those actually added to HTML5, or do people just start using them?
See, HTML5, HTML has documentation, like all programming languages, right? Still language, guys. And with the people looking over documentation, we're like, you know, I think we need to make this friendly for developers. Let's make their life slightly easier. Let's let them use syntax that makes sense so they can tell other coders in the future what the hell this is for. So they came up like with a bunch of HTML5 elements. And then they, what's the word? They retired some old ones, yeah, we'll go with that, retired, okay? Deprecated, that was the word, okay, there we go. Deprecated some other elements, all right? Also, HTML5 also has things like figure, big caption for a figure. Figure is like a little bit confusing, you can like stick anything in there really, kind of. An image, I guess. You know, for drawing graphs, I don't know, whatever. Video, audio, really obvious, yeah, all right. So, a lot of people's semantic markup is what's wrong?
I think what you're looking for is that there's no reason to have like that many levels of text with this.
I mean, sure, maybe. I don't know, maybe there is a reason. Let's assume for the sake of example. What's going on here that will piss off a lot of people? No. What do you do?
Oh, is it that you should name the section hello because you don't know what that's for?
Yeah. What the hell does hello mean to me? I don't know what the hell it is. If I'm a new developer, I get shipped over to a new project. What the fuck is hello? What the hell is it representing? How am I supposed to know until I have to like inspect elements at one point? God damn. Intro, making more sense. Name, making more sense. But like, this is not semantic at all. What if you need to change the content inside later? You have to rename it. Why can't you just make it like super common stuff? How about you just do like dot section? I can't forget my left hand. Okay. This is a section, all right? And then hello is now a section, and the ID is now like title. There's a title now, and then content inside. Like, that tells me a little bit more about what's inside. That also abstracts it so that you make your code a little bit more maintainable for future use. Right? Sometimes you will need IDs for things that will just never show up, and in which case, name it whatever its function is. Like if I have a view more button that's never showed over again, I can name it view more. Okay, I don't care. You have a question? Okay.
Yes.
I will take a question. Are you going to talk about classes versus IDs?
Okay, so I've had this question before. That's really cool. So classes and IDs. The difference is that IDs are used for elements that are. Did I just say IDs? Yeah. IDs are used for elements that will only show up once, never again. Okay. Classes are used for multiple elements. The thing is, IDs are slightly faster to identify when browsers try to match up states to each other because IDs show up once, right? The thing is that speed is almost so negligible, it's almost non-existent. So and classes for multiple elements. That's what everyone is usually doing nowadays, because there's a lot of stuff that really you can abstract out. You can make it modular. You can make it a common pattern that you see. Okay? And modular will be something covered in CS 1 through 6 as well, for those of you in CS and first year. So yeah. So I'm just gonna have it fixed. Oh. Yeah, I messed up. Oh, thanks. All right, cool.
Wait, Tiffany, are these slides available?
Yes, these slides will be going on available on the Facebook event page. I'll have Google Doc or everything that users have used, along with some others not covered because I don't have time.
You're the best.
Thank you. God. Oh God. I'm gonna go check the questions. Right about now, actually. We look at the. Okay, so far some questions. You guys so go on here and ask me questions. I will check periodically. Oh, I'm gonna go back to this. My bad. Alright. Questions I've seen so far. What differentiates a good and bad website? Is it a good idea to create a personal website off a template? Okay. I will answer all these at the end, but just let you know, those are questions. Those are very valid questions, and those are fine to ask. I will take any questions. Okay. Also, David, if you're not asking a question, don't ask it where I know your name. Where I know your name right there. Calling you out right now, okay? Anyway, that's enough of semantic markup. That's a
What
little
is
too much
CSS?
rambling. I'm sorry, I'm a very big rambler. I do enjoy this kind
Oh
of stuff.
God.
Ha! Ha! You thought. You thought. So the thing about websites is the way the browser also views websites is like layers of an onion. I'm not gonna make a reference. Okay, I will refrain right there. So z-index basically lists how far up your element is on each layer. All right. Imagine if everything is a box, that's 2D box. Okay. Now you're putting all these boxes on top of all these like square box layers, all these papers on top of each other. Okay? Yeah. Yeah. So if you're familiar with Photoshop, any art software, imagine having layers in your art projects, right? You can hide stuff on different layers. You have stuff show up on top. Even PowerPoint, if you don't know my example from before, PowerPoint sent to backwards or sent to back, right? Order. So z-index goes in ascending order, where higher number is better. However, and any number can be written down as an integer. And you can write z-index -1 if you want to hide the thing entirely. Okay? I've also seen people do this. Z-index 999999999 and add infinitum. Okay, don't do that. I promise you, no one will override. No one will ever reach a point of actually overriding on top of that, unless they have to like literally just shove it in because you wrote that in the first place. Okay? Z-index. If you have 4 elements that you need to position on top of each other, 1, 2, 3, 4, you're done. You don't need that much.
I got a question from the chat. Does DPT stand for Dank Pro Tip?
Now it does. Thank you. I welcome all questions. I will literally answer anything else. Alright, yeah. That was simple code. I have more code to show you in this part. This is really advanced stuff. This is where shit gets fun. Because here, let's pretend for a moment that you've got your website. You got your purpose, you got your layout. Alright, cool. And then you filled it in, you got all the color, you added images, you added your layout, you added typography, you made your code, you wrote the code, everything looks pretty okay. Everything's pretty semantic, you know what the code can do, you know if you ever want to change your code later, you'll figure out what it does. Really fast. Right? Alright. Fun stuff. Just kidding. This is not fun. Okay? It's not fun. I will tell you. I spent half my time building Tumblr themes and the other half building actual websites, and believe me, in the beginning it was a pain in the ass to just this. So here's how you just do it fast. Okay? So 3 steps. Step 1. And you put in whatever CSS code for the element, whatever. And so for styles, for whatever breakpoint. Breakpoint being what size you want to change your styling for. That's a breakpoint, okay? So you put the styles in there, and then the browser, when you resize your window, it will automatically detect what size it is. And at some point, that size will be like, oh shit, I'm gonna change it to this style because it's this X width or X height, whatever. Okay? Another thing you should think about is think from small to big, not big to small. All right? There's two terms here. The first one, for mobile, scaling upwards is called responsive design. I know it's a big new buzzword. Who cares? God damn. There's another one, from big to small, called graceful degradation. Yeah. I can't pronounce things. It's basically scaling desktop downward for mobile. And the thing is, that's fine. I know we have old code, but when people see that kind of code on your portfolio, and they look at your code, it looks spaghetti. It looks like shit. Because that means you're not thinking how to put the most important content first and then add details later. That just means, you know what, this thing looks nice on here, I'll just slap some shit down for mobile and call it a day. Right? Think big. Think big. Okay? Like mobile, you have only so much room to work with. Alright? You want to put what's most important on there first. When you can scale things up, when people have big monitors and then they have like great graphics cards or whatever, okay? They look at your site and look at how cool it is. They can also do the whole browser thing where you rescale it up and down, whatever. That's also a way to test your code, I guess, if you want to know how to test CSS. Yeah. Okay? Mobile responsiveness. So let's talk about native code. So yeah, tell the browser how to change the size of CSS to whatever screen size. So that's syntax, it's at media. Technically all is done like, it means literally just all things. You can say at media print, and it knows you want to put the styles when you want to print a page off, a literal physical page. Okay? At media screen, screen. It's obvious. And then breakpoint, and then breakpoint, right? So the four major ones are width, height, aspect ratio, and orientation. There's also min and max versions. So at a min width, at this minimum width, this style should be applied, okay? So for anything this and bigger, apply, okay? Max, opposite. Small for at most this style should be applied up to this, and then height, obvious. Aspect ratio. This is something interesting. Not very commonly used, but it is useful for edge cases. There are edge cases where shit will go wrong, and then you know what? My friend once tested his website on Amazon Kindle and looked like shit on there. You know what? I don't know why you want to look at the website on Amazon Kindle, but there you go. So aspect ratio. Basically, take the ratio of width and height of the device. Also, these width and height always will take the actual device width of your site. Okay? So, you know how we have the cool 1080p on your phone and all that stuff? Yeah, the actual pixels, maybe 360 at that. So on the iPhone 5, it is 320. Aspect ratio of width to height. Min aspect ratio, 1:1, essentially says this must be a minimum of the width must be at least the same as its height or greater. Right? Max does the opposite. Orientation, portrait landscape, good for when you want to design things specifically for landscape because landscapes are being designed to work. So try to think of min-x, because min-x is how you scale things bigger, right? So you have the default style, and then you add the extra details afterwards. At this width, add x detail. At this width, add x detail. So simple. Alright? Let's talk about animations. I know some of you have been to our website and seen the animation content, right? Alright? I know many of you have seen really cool animations on the web. I know how many of you guys have heard of parallax? Parallax scrolling, where background image looks like slightly slower, like looks kind of cool. to that, but I'm also a forgetful person with the memory of less than goldfish. Animations. So CSS actually has animation of their own. Alright? You have keyframes. Alright? It's like, do any of you guys remember Adobe Flash back in the day? Alright? Do you remember how you make tweens? And like, you basically put frames together, and you have like one frame from another, and then, you know, move between, and that's why they call it tween. Yeah, keyframes like mimics that, essentially. So, there's an animation property as well. The name, blah, 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 how long it takes, so on and so forth. Very simple. So basically, you have your animation, you'll describe it in here, you name it whatever the hell you want it, and then what you want to call it for a specific function, for a specific element, give me a second. You type into that element you want to animate. Animation, name, your how long it takes, so on and so forth. Okay? Actually, go back. Because I'm not going to do that just yet. I am going to show you, actually, this little pen. Alright? I cannot search it. Okay, well, I'm just fix that for a second. But I can see things, okay? God. So, I have a box. It was red. And now I cannot see where, okay, there we go. And now I can make it do this. Yes, you can see this. And I can make it run infinitely forever. I can make it alternate. It's animation. The animation, the keyframe, all it says is, this says keyframes make bigger from width 100 pixels to width 1,000, okay? So, I specify that keyframe. And then, what happens is, why will this go? I will just let it go. This box, I told it to, be whatever, blah, 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 width, so on and so forth. And the animation says, make bigger and run this animation for 1.5 seconds. Make it loop infinitely, and alternate the animation. So basically, it will go do the from, right? And then it'll reverse it, and then do that infinitely. Alright? And you'll see those animations, you have a lot of power now to work with things, because I cannot see where is it. You have to respond to it. Anyways, like my site, CSS animation only. I have no touch of JavaScript there. Absolutely no JavaScript on my current website, except for my project pages. Right? But on my landing page, all the animations you see on my first iteration on my personal website, the one with the cool box opening thing and my name spreads out. The JavaScript was just time it and put it in the correct order. And I could actually time it now in CSS because I know better. Alright? I just added custom JS.
For your website, did you use the color palette generator on that picture of yourself?
No. I don't know why that. Okay.
I want to touch before because you mentioned the Flash. Does CSS also do different types of cleaning? So, for example, Flash did like position and shape cleaning. Do you do that in CSS as well, or is it just shape cleaning? Or
I mean, this is technically animating its width, right? In a way, I guess that's shape cleaning. You can animate a bunch of properties on CSS animations, really. The thing about that, though, you only want to animate these two properties optimally. So what happens is when browsers look at your website, they gotta call all your forms, they gotta call all your HTML. So that was that. Okay? So they compare in this order. JavaScript. They read through all your JavaScript and see what was going to be changed. HTML is going to parse all your HTML, figure out what every element is. Okay? Then it'll go to CSS layout, width, height, position, display, flow, clear, whatever the hell you have. Okay? It's going to look at all that, so it'll start arranging things. Colors. And composite. This is where transform and opacity opacity. See, what happens is when you use only this layer, when you're animating transform and opacity, what this tells the browser is, okay, I'm gonna push this to the GPU actually. You can go compute that. I'm gonna go focus on laying out all the rest of this crap. And that makes your site faster load just slightly. Just slightly, but it's enough. You just need every millisecond kind of counts. And what happens is when you have JavaScript, that animates stuff for you. When you're animating the CSS layout, or you're animating the background of the thing, the browser has to recalculate everything from that layer onwards and then keep doing the thing. So it will basically rewind and restart all its calculations, and that takes time that you need. So transform has a bunch of properties. So you can do translate X, translate Y, scale it up, down, rotate things, so on and so forth. I have the cool, like super edgy, like slightly splendid thing that's rotate from transform. Good shit. Yeah. This is actually a new concept. A lot of front-end developers this is like the performance part of it. Alright? If your code can compile, how do you make it more efficient? Okay, now.
Thank you. So you said that optimally we should only be animating transform and opacity. What else can you animate? Can you animate color? Can you animate?
You can animate anything.
Okay.
Absolutely anything. You can literally animate from display none to display block, or just jump between those. There's
So
space.
can you animate even things like padding and margin?
Yes.
Like static objects like tables? Can you animate a table?
Yes, you can animate anything. Anything.
Okay, that's weird.
Well, because animation, the keyframe is the animation of like what it's gonna do, and then you just call that in your code. Call it an element, and that element will be being animated, and that's any element.
Okay.
All right. This is just what's most optimal for your browser, your loading time. What's composite again? So composite is like a final layer. It's really difficult to describe because they have different layers of it. So they name this like layout that's called painting actually. So you paint over on your site and it's pretty whatever. And composite's like the extra stuff, really, I would say. It like does the final change of things, I would say. I don't have a personal definition, I just call it that. I am admittedly a little new as looking for an inference, but I'm working on making my site load. Right now, there's a way to do it with, so Chrome and spec element. We've all used at least one in our lives. So Chrome is a thing, actually, where you can go to a timeline and you can look at how fast your website is for different things. You can look at how fast it parses through all your code, and then there we go. Particle.js. This stuff moving on the screen, can you see it? Okay. My friend did a really cool thing. You can't actually see it, but like the color changes, alright? That's the cool animation right there. I mean, there's some background stuff you can see hopefully. I mean I can see it on the close to screen, but like in the background has particles are kind of moving. Just a little bit. Alright. And I will not talk in depth about JavaScript animation just because like there's a ton of different libraries for what you want to do, manage it, try to optimize it, so on and so forth. It's all on Google. A lot of the stuff you can find on Google because that's how I do it. So I'm gonna talk about more complex stuff. This is stuff where you're like, I don't know if you're trying to develop. This topic is for A+. So CSS is a pain in the ass to write. That is the first thing I'll admit. Plain CSS is a pain in your ass. Okay, when you do big projects, how are you supposed to maintain all one file? how are you supposed to look up things? The search function is just annoying, right? So, people came up with things like pre-CSS compilers, pre-compilers, where basically you write CSS in a really kind of like a more programming kind of way. You have if-else statements now. You have variables. You have functions. You have maps, lists, dictionaries. Alright? You have for loops. If-else, do while, whatever. You basically, the two biggest are Sass and less. Sass is currently the most popular front-end precompiler to exist. Bootstrap 4 has officially converted to using Sass only, instead of using Bootstrap 3 has used less, and then via Sass 4, they're just officially converting to this. Alright? So, Sass, there's sasslang.com, well, sass-lang.com. You can look up the documentation for it, basically variables, so on and so forth. I can give you a look at my GitHub code, because all my websites are on GitHub. Wow. And you can look at all the Sass code you want. Also, it's fun saying, I write Sass, and then, give me all the notes you want. People who don't know how you're talking about. It's fun saying, I write less, and I'm like, and then you're like, oh, I don't really want that.
But like Sass programmer on your resume.
I don't make it right then until I work for people who make stuff and like add stuff to Sass. Sass has a lot of mainly it's Ruby has a gem just to write Sass, compile Sass. Node.js, NPM as well has stuff for Sass. I won't go too in depth with those. But basically there's a bunch of languages and frameworks that let you compile Sass and then compile all in one. The best part of this is that both of these, and front-end text in general, they will let you separate files and then import everything into one file together. So not only do you just import everything into one file, so you save on loading time, but now you can separate your own work files into different stuff, organize it, and keep it organized. Incidentally, that's how I got my job at Shopify next semester, Yeah, humble brag. No, seriously, I showed them my personal website, and I think how they were impressed. I am also surprised. So, frameworks. Bootstrap's the biggest, obviously. Bootstrap is useful, very useful. I almost resorted to it at some point, or at least a couple people's websites and other projects. I definitely am using Bootstrap for some of my side projects because I don't want to write big code into pain in the ass. Right? So Bootstrap is a thing. But there is more code. There's things like Foundation. It does something kind of similar. Right? It does sites. Right? Add some stuff, blah, 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 It's a similar framework to Bootstrap, alright? You can look up the differences yourself. I'm not going to show you Bootstrap. There are also frameworks where you just need to get started, right? Boilerplates, we call them. They give you all the basic code, you just start off a website and file it, right? This is one, this is Skeleton. It's about 200 lines of code at most, and then they give you all the basic HTML basic HTML, like browser resets. So like browsers have their own ports and loading and showing websites and stuff. So we wrote CSS to reset that first. Right? All this stuff. Really easy. It just gets you started. Here's another boilerplate. HTML5 boilerplate. Really popular. You'll see it in a lot of places. And let's see. Questions. First of all, what's CSS? Cascading Style David. You taught CSS. You learned how to look at it. I know you did. Stop. Let's see. Is it good you build create a virtual website off a template? Yes. Literally, yes. If you are lazy, you don't want to give a shit, you know what? Yeah, just go for it. Write your own code, get a template. Like, it depends on what you want to do, right? Like, just get a template that looks nice, whatever. I don't know. Like, you don't have to know all the stuff for design. You can just pick an editing template, call it a day, because in the end, maybe you're not into design. You're not into design, you just want to, like, put your side projects out there. You just want to, like, link people stuff. You want to get to, like, real content. And that's your thing, right? What differentiates a good bad website? I would say good and bad website is not about style or layout or how it looks. Okay, some of how it looks, but it's more like, is it readable? Is its content relevant throughout the site? Right? Is there a singular purpose that I can detect? Right? Is it user friendly? Does the nav lead me through like a rabbit hole of links and clicks and like I don't know how to get out? You can make bad websites, ironically, and that therefore for its purpose that's good. Terrible hacks. Okay? What is a web page? Well, it's a page on the internet, and actually, the internet kind of does a thing where it lists all your sites and like phone books, and each one with its own, you know, things like that. I won't go into that. Let's see. Best websites, fake websites to learn JS. Looking through W3 schools is like the first thing I think of. I use Codecademy as well. I've used Khan Academy as well, I think. Yeah. I know, sorry, it's kind of double my knowledge. I just learn things from ripping things apart and rebuilding them from scratch.
Do you ever override like the browser's default elements like select?
You can reset select and you can also style select. See, there's also ways to override CSS. Let's talk about CSS specificity. God, I don't know how to say that word. So, it goes in 3 levels, okay? In order. So, the least important are generic elements. Div, H1, P, so on and so forth, right? Basic elements that apply to like every single element. And then you have classes. Slightly more specific now. They'll override, you know, all the styles you just put the rest. And then IDs. Those are the most specific, right? Because they're only singular, and then you need those to be the most important. Yeah. Let's see. One thing also I should talk about is, you guys are going to think of this. Does anyone know what pulse code is actually? So div ULLI A nth child is 2.
Looks like a drop down in
That's like the most disgusting way you create CSS, and I want to tell you don't do that. I'm gonna definitely tell you don't do that.
What is that?
Alright? What this essentially says is, this style is for all divs with lists, where a list item has an A link, and the A link has a child, has like you know, elements inside, the second element inside that link. And the thing is, the browser is computing all this shit, right? So the browser has to look for all this stuff, which takes up time. This is like non-basic math for them, okay? For these, because these are like, classes are applied everywhere, right? So you just select all the multiple elements and apply them once. ID, you look for it once, so there's only one way to apply it once. They're fast, right? This is not fast. Don't try not to nest as much as possible. Also, if you're using this, if you're using exclamation mark important a lot, you're something right. There's something wrong with your code. If you're not overriding a bootstrap thing or a library thing, don't try not to do this because that basically means you're messing up your specificity. Okay?
I don't want to go too off topic, so if this is, then don't answer it. But why? How could you have an A element that has a second or two like sub elements? Because A is just a link, right?
Put like a picture inside of my link.
Oh, okay.
Okay, example, done. Let's see. Difference between CSS, HTML, PHP, React, Angular, Node.js. So, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, basic web languages. You probably at least know a little bit of the first of HTML, CSS. JavaScript, if you want to be like a JavaScript developer, like, learn more of that. React, Angular are front-end frameworks. So essentially what you're doing is you're using JavaScript to write all your front-end now. The thing about React is that you're also writing your CSS in there, you're using JavaScript to write CSS. And there's like some new frameworks there are some frameworks that do that, some frameworks that don't. Developing frameworks, there are ones that not do that so much. React and Angular do similar things. React is developed by Facebook, Angular is developed by Google. Angular 1 and Angular 2 are vastly different. Do not mix those up. Okay? Node.js is backend. Using JavaScript to go to backend. You can run servers off that. Yeah. How to get Shopify plus help. Step 1. Be a cool person who's not a dick. Step 2. Actually apply to, I don't know, you just applied, right? Okay, see, I apply for front end. I do front end. This is like the shit I live for as of right now. Maybe I'll write a book or something about that's not front end related. Yeah, so I applied to Shopify front end this semester, and I talked about their interviews. It was like, you know, they got to know me first, and then I went on this technical round, and then they contacted me if I got it or not. The first round, I just talked about, you know, how I got into design, why I like it, why it's been my thing for a while, whatever. I like the company, that's why I applied, right? Technical round. For front end, they asked me how I implemented things and then talked about the side projects. And like, you want to show them, I guess in general, when doing interviews, and I guess this is a little off topic, I guess more for like job and stuff. When you're doing interviews and stuff, don't show them code as spaghetti. Show them good code. Show them how you're proud of it, right? It doesn't matter if your project is like something you're kind of shameful of, or like something you're not like, you probably call it kind of disaster, but like, you wrote this code, you know why your project went to a disaster. You address that. You talk about that. Be honest, right? People will see that. People think, you know what, this person knows how to learn, because like, we're all students here for the next 5 years or so. And employers know that. We're all students here, so we don't know everything in the world. So they're gonna look for someone who's actually okay with learning. Why is parallax not advisable? Alright, fun. So parallax, what it does is, you can fake parallax first of all. So you just have a background image and you put like a bunch of divs, and just an empty div, just a background image, so on and so forth. Background images take a lot of time to load. Oh, also, pro tip, background images can actually help make your website look pretty. Right? Now let me show you an example of that. I'm sorry, I'm banning my example. I built this, 6 hours.
What is this for? We should just hire you.
No.
Good.
I just did this for fun because I really like her background image was really pretty, and she did her art there, and I was like, you know what, yo, that's really cool. Maybe I'm gonna like redesign this just for fun because you know I do that. I'm that kind of nerd. So I did this for her, and then like the background image just makes it look automatically pretty. Should I go to terrible hacks for an opposite example, or are we all good here?
I have a question.
Anyway, yeah.
Did you buy Civ 6 yet?
code, he has to do the adjust this thing as you're scrolling, and has to do all the computation as you're doing the thing. So, and then it makes your website slow. Really slow, actually. Have you ever gone on a website that has parallax? You notice how the scrolling is and then it's really slow? Or it gets buggy? That's why. And people nowadays, they want facts. They want, just let me have the thing. Alright? I just want my food. I don't need some fancy bullshit. If I can't see it half the time, I just want my food. Okay? Why do you only resort to Bootstrap? I do not use Bootstrap for a lot of my projects, admittedly. Which is why the word resort was a bad choice on my part. I do find Bootstrap would be useful. I'm just the type of person who knows what they want, knows how to design what they want, and knows all the code to get there. So I custom make everything. I have my own repository of modules that I wrote just to set up a thing that I could probably have done and just pull from Bootstrap. Right? Bootstrap is useful, especially useful when you don't want to touch the CSS, okay? Like you just want something that's simple, you just need a thing, an interface for a web app, that's fine. Like everything project, individually custom. It depends on what kind of work they need and what technologies they want me to make it in. Yeah, how many pages they need as well. How do you learn design? I Google a lot. I do what the fancy term is UI UX design. You can just do introduction to web design, right? UI UX design extends to all interface stuff. So maybe you want to develop for Android, maybe you want to develop for iOS, maybe you want to develop a web app, maybe you want to develop software, right? But all these things, man, though, they still kind of look. There's still things that need a view for you to look at, but interact with. And you design how it looks. You design how you make a user feel okay with using your product. It's like Facebook keeps you on for a reason. You know, Facebook is addictive a little bit for a reason. And you design the UI that way. Okay? I will pay to disrupt. You know what? If you want to pay me, let's talk about this afterwards, okay? I'm trying to lay out my table with the table how to vertically center my tables. Why are you doing this? Why are you nesting tables? Please stop. Please stop. I promise you, I'm pretty sure you don't need nested tables, especially not for layout. When I said don't use tables for layout.
I was going to ask, like, as an add-on to, like, how do you learn design questions, like, often the problem I have is, like, I can make blocks on a page, but then every time I think of any sort of subtle details, and then I think everything's functional, but it always, like, looks bad. I usually don't know how to deal with those subtle details and, like, how much to replace things and, like, all that kind of stuff, where it just feels like I'm just kind of trying different things until something looks okay.
Yeah. The thing about that is design cherry picks a lot of stuff from the field. Art, architecture, marketing, actually, psychology, right? And it's just like you need to learn, have a little bit of knowledge right to do like the general case design. For web design in particular, it's a practice sort of thing, right? I started off pretty okay. I have a humble brag. But what I did is I looked at websites, and I looked at why they had X amount of thing. And admittedly, I grew up in an environment where I kind of had an eye for this, where I did a bunch of interior design shit a little bit at one point. So I knew how to pick colors, and there should be enough space and so on and so forth. So it was kind of easy to translate that code. Like designing websites, it's like infinitely easier than designing a house because you don't need to design a load-bearing wall. You forget that wall, people die, and then you get sued. Right? How do you use a background image-based color scheme? So what you do is you try to include background image, right? And then you match. You try and pick the general base color, like the one that most often shows up, because that's the one that most people remember. Big colors, right? Remember what I showed you, the really cool art for my friend, and it was mostly like pinks and yellows, right? Well, a little bit of blue at the top. Pinks and yellows were what I used throughout the set. And then I use blue for headlines because it was providing enough contrast and it still matched a little bit after. How do you find clients as a freelance designer? I marketed a lot. I mean, my first I started off like friends paid me. At least one person was paying me $100 to make their website. Yeah, so then from there on out, I've had people, friends of friends, go on and so forth. I had a guy offer me a side job at one point where I could basically build an AngularJS thing for them, and they would pay for that. I turned down for that before.
I wanted to ask, going off of the previous question with the background images, how do you go about picking a good background image to basically set up?
Oh, that's actually a really nice question. I'm sorry, I didn't even hear you. I'm sorry. That was just like, that's a fun question. I don't
No
know.
offense taken.
So background images, what you want is something, when you're laying out your website, and you click into background image, it provides some constraints, right? In design, you also need rules and constraints to work with. Because otherwise, everything in the air just narrow it down, right? So background image, you just generally want something that you can, that will blend in easily, that looks like, it's not like something so visually arresting that you forget, that people ignore your content, right? Because in the end, it's not the background image, but the content. You want something that, like, it's nice looking, but like, let me show you a thing. I know, I'm showing you many things. Yeah, I think that's quite good. This one. This is, I'll have it. That makes sense now. I'll be in the camera, turn off the light here for a moment. That's so dark, you can't see it. Oh, alright. I designed this. This is my first website. Well, so like, it's really pretty, right? And the thing is, like, there's like the generally, it's like kind of pretty. That's the first thing you kind of see. And I based my scheme around the colors, the main colors, blue and gold. The thing about this, like this picture I chose was because at some point you forget that these are all there, right? Like there's gold, but like you can also focus enough on the content because it's right here, it's in your face, it's in the center, right? Like all the buildings themselves are not particularly like eye-catching. They're kind of there. It's like a general block.
So scenic.
Scenic, yeah. Right? You want to choose something that, unless you're trying to draw attention to the background image, you want to choose something that won't draw attention away from the content. Or if you're not using your background image to draw attention to the content. Let me show you another website. This one is an idol personally. If I can just click on the thing that I can't see. What? This would be nice. She is a part of that work at Shopify, and I knew of her a couple years back. Like, knew of her, I don't know her. Would be cool though. And you sort of notice, like, it's like visually arresting. Her picture's there for a reason because, it's a picture of her. And this is her personal website. You sort of see the eye line though. Like, it's pointing towards those birds. Subtle, but effective, right? Right? She's facing towards these words. It's content. So, and then this is her introduction. Turn on the light again. Yeah, visual acumen in general. It's a learned thing. It's really hard to describe. I always suggest learning art. Honestly, like part of it is like you need to know art, but how to effectively design around space, negative space, and the space of objects. I think that would probably be best. Also, like art learning, having been involved in art for a good, like just vaguely, has helped me a lot in design stuff. I've done a little bit of freelance work in websites and miscellaneous, but I'm not sure how much to charge for that. What's a good baseline? I don't charge by the hour, just because it's a little sketchy and you don't know how much work will be. What I do is I what I have to do the base hourly. Like, I would probably say, probably price this up, if I was gonna do hourly, $20. What I would do is, I look at the project, you know how much work you do. You look at your base, I guess like make a base, so value your skills, look at how much they're worth. Look at the marketplace and see how much they're worth. And then from there, you scale it up to think about how much, if you approximate how much work it will take, so then you charge by that. I'm sorry, this is a little, even this is a topic that I'm a little bit murky about, because it is very difficult to do some of that. Whoever sent me the table thing again, I'm gonna hate you. Yeah, I think that should be it. Whoever wants to pay me to disrupt. Yes, I will be gladly paid at least $100 an hour to disrupt. Okay? Yeah. Any other questions? I'll take them. I'll even take what's your battle on net, because you can admin Overwatch. I don't know. I played on your computer today, dude. Like, please. I know I'm better than you. Yeah. I don't think you want encore. So thank you so much for coming. I hope you learned something out of this. I had a thing. Another thing. Okay, I'm just closing all this. Where is it? Oh. Wow. Okay, let's try one more time. Let's try this one more time. Oh my god. Should have added these. Okay, got it. Oh god, okay. There we go! Okay, finally. Alright. I'm also free for any questions about running. You can always find me on Facebook, by the way. Yeah, I hope this is educational. Hope you enjoyed this. And my really shitty jokes. So, shout out to Manuel for doing this live stream, and then the video will be up. I will also put the resources up shortly. So, yeah. Oh, yeah.